co-pastor in our Family Matters series. Hi, Sister Fontaine. Our family series that we've been doing, the Family Matters, and I'm here to talk today about being a godly wife. And if you're not a wife right now, that's okay. You can hopefully pick up some stuff I'm talking about, apply it to your life, and when that Prince Charming comes along, you'll be ahead of the game. They say that marriage is like a deck of cards. You start out with 2 hearts and a diamond and end up with a club and some spades. And that sometimes is the mentality that we have when it comes to marriage. It's all fun and games. Right, Brother Lyons? Jerry joke of the day. Fun and games. But marriage is something that is taken very seriously, or it should be. And if you're not, then hopefully after this series you will be. For me personally, it's been the best experience of my life. I was 18 when I realized that I wanted to marry my husband, and people are like, how in the world did you know you wanted to marry a man when you were 18? It's very young. This coming up April will be 20 years. And he just checked all the boxes. He was my best friend, and I said, you know what? We can work through the rest. And that's what we've done for the last 20 years is figured out and learned about each other and made it work. So because individually some things are pretty amazing, but when you put them together, they're just so much better, like peanut butter and jelly. Like steak and potatoes. Individually, yeah, they're pretty good, but man, together. How about apple pie and ice cream and bacon and eggs? Each one of these items you can like bites, but man, together, they're pretty dynamic. And so is marriage. So marriage is taking 2 completely different, amazing, intelligent, vibrant, independent individuals and bringing them together to combine an unstoppable team. And if each individual person fulfills their specific godly designed role, then man, it's really a dynamic duo that can't be stopped. So Pastor, the last couple of weeks, has done a fantastic job of speaking about the biblical principles of marriage, but then specifically to the husbands, that you are to treat your wives, how you're to treat your wives and children, and how you're to respect them and to love them. And I love how he used the word responsibility. God gave very clear commandments in the Bible, the role of the husband, and the word responsibility is how you take ownership of that command for men. Men, it's vital that in a marriage, as the woman, I'll be the first to say, I'm glad I don't have the men's role. I don't want to be the one to be the head of the house. Thank you, Jesus, you didn't pick me to do that. That's a big responsibility. All I got to do is be under submission to that responsibility, and I'll be good. So my role is just as important as his role, but thank God he did not pick me to be that person. But I feel that he gave women I'm going to talk about 2 specific things that are our responsibility today. The first one is submission. It's a popular word among women. When you hear it, you kind of, I love that word. Hopefully after today, you'll like it a little bit better. And the second is respect. This song was sang by one of the greatest of all times, and I'm not going to sing it today because my husband loves to burst out in songs, but you can sing it in your head. Respect. Ephesians 5:22-24 says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husband as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Verse 24 in the New Living Translation says, as the church submits to Christ, so you wives should submit to your husbands in everything. Submission in its most basic form or definition is the action or fact of accepting or yielding to a superior force or to the will of authority of another person. Sounds easy enough. But yet, as women, society, we've been put under this mind frame, and this word has become a negative word. It's become a challenging word. You hear it, and you honestly automatically think like, I'm less than, I'm not equal to, I am weaker than, and I'm not as important as. And this couldn't be any further from the truth. Because we've allowed the concept of my individual woman rights and my liberties and freedoms to creep into our mind and twist a biblical principle and a command of submission. Because submission is a command. If you don't hear anything else today, there it is. It's a command. It's not an option. It's not something you can pick and choose to do when you want. You must do this to be pleasing to God. It says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. And like the husband is commanded to love his wife, we are commanded to submit to our husbands. The husband is responsible to love his wife. So I am responsible to understand my role of submission to my husband. And submission is not something that works if you're just trying to satisfy a requirement in a specific relationship. Submission is a result of a spirit of humility. The Apostle Peter directs in 1 Peter 5:5 that we are to submit. Likewise, ye younger, submit yourself unto the elder. Yea, all of you, be subject one to another, be clothed with humility, for God resisteth the proud and giveth grace to the humble. In that verse, he says, 1, be clothed with humility, and 2, that God gives grace to the humble. The word clothed describes being enveloped. In other words, submission isn't just an action. It's a result of being wrapped in, covered, completely engulfed in humility. And further, grace to the humble describes a person's state of being. Humble is who you are, not just what you do. It's part of your spirit. Submission, you either have it or you don't, and it's one of those things you really can't fake it. You show it or you don't. It doesn't work to just act submitted in one area of your life while being completely unsubmitted in other areas. It's a willingness to embrace the leadership of those governing your life. And for this instance, for this lesson today, it's your husband. If you don't have a husband, it should be your pastor. That only comes from a submitted will. Therefore, if you're completely submitted to God's governance, then the spirit of humility will manifest submission in every area of your life. It's just like love isn't a feeling, it's a willing. Submission isn't a checkbox that you can do when you feel like it. It's a willingness that you practice every day. You can't choose, well, I'll submit to that, but I'm not going to submit to that. You do it or you don't. Many assume that leadership is strength and that submission often implies weakness, but true submission is evidence of respect, flexibility, trust, and humility. It is the quality. It's such a strong quality that every woman, as a godly woman, as a wife, you should want to possess this quality. Paul uses the greatest humility of Jesus, humbling himself to become a man, to teach us that if we have the mind of Christ, we will live in mutual submission. This is God's systems of checks and balances in the apostolic church, and for that matter, the family. So here's an example for you. Ephesians 1:6 says, children, obey your parents in the Lord. Ephesians 6:4, fathers, provoke not your children to wrath. Checks and balances. Ephesians 6:5, servants, be obedient to them that are your masters. Ephesians 6:9, ye masters, do the same thing unto them. Checks and balances. We're each doing our part. It's a mutual submission. Ephesians 5:22, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands. Ephesians 5:25, husbands, love your wives even as Christ. You both do your part. Ephesians 5:21, submit yourselves one to another in the fear of God. Submission has occurred in an environment of mutual submission. It's not a line, it's more like a web. We're going to intertwine. You're going to always be submitted to somebody, your boss, the government. Somebody's always going to be over you. So learning submission is not just a woman thing, it's a everybody thing. Each of us pulling our own weight in our own position to make it in unison. No matter your rank or position, you will have the opportunity to will yourself into submission and accountability to someone else, even those who are superior in rank. Submission equals your mission under someone else's mission. I love that. That's not original with me, but submission is your submission, you being under someone else's authority, and in this case, your husband. Remember, you can't submit when you agree. It's only required when there's disagreement. When you're disagreeing, one of you has to give in. Wives, when you're disagreeing, and I'll get to this later, and your husband has to make the final decision, this is where submission comes into play. Agreement is powerful, but submission is even more powerful. It is easier to submit when you know that you're out of your league, but it's quite difficult when you don't see yourself needing instruction. Wives, this is where submission becomes challenging. When you don't feel like you need instruction or correction or direction, or you don't need somebody, And in societies today, as we would say, I don't need a man telling me what to do. That's how we have been taught. That's how we've been taught to think. But that's not biblical. In your relationship with your husband, you do need his direction and guidance. And if you don't agree or have a different opinion, you still have to choose to submit. We turn the issue into a bigger issue when we lack submission. We bring more conflict to the issue when we lack submission. And I'll get to supporting women and their opinions, but just stick with me for a few minutes, okay? Power over self is perhaps the greatest power there is. Bill and his wife, Martha, went to the state fair every year. And every year, Bill would say, Martha, I'd like to ride in that airplane. And Martha would always reply, I know, Bill, but that airplane ride costs $10, and $10 is $10. One year, Bill and Martha went to the fair, and Bill said, Martha, I'm 71 years old. If I don't ride in that airplane, I may never get a chance. And Martha replied, Bill, the airplane ride costs $10, and $10 is $10. The pilot overheard them and said, folks, I'll make you a deal. I'll take you both up in a ride. If you can stay quiet the entire ride and not say one word, I won't charge you. But if you say one word, it's $10. So Bill and Martha agreed, and up they went. The pilot did all kinds of twists and turns, rolls and dives. Not a word was heard. He did all of his tricks again, but still not a word. And when they landed, the pilot turned to Bill and said, by golly, I did everything I could to get you to yell out, but you didn't. And Bill replied, well, I was going to say something when Martha fell out, but $10 is $10. Sometimes you hear something over and over and over, and it doesn't click until all of a sudden it does click, and he's like, well, $10 is $10, honey. I mean, that's what you've been saying. And Lydia, I hope this concept of submission will click with you today. We have to learn the value of submission to authority that God has put over us. Men, you got all your teaching from pastor, but just remember, we're not doormats to be walked over. We're not doormats or something that just because you have the power, you use the power. Use it with wisdom. Use it with dignity. Use it with respect. Use it properly. Nurture those beings that are trying to submit to you. Use it in a proper way. But ladies, listen to your husbands. You have opinions. Here's what I'm going to say to you. You have opinions and you have ideas, and you should express them. If you have a mutual, remember, submission is not a line, it's a web. If you have mutual submission, husbands, listen to your wives. They're intelligent. They got some wisdom to bring to the table. They're not, just because they're submitted doesn't mean they're stupid, right? And just because men are the leaders don't mean that they're dumb either. It's a unified effort. So listen to them. Take into consideration what they're giving you. Husbands and wives, you may have opposing ideas that arise. Both should have the goal or the mission to accomplish whatever the issue is. Let's get to the same page. But you can't be two leaders. Two people can't make one decision. One person makes the final decision. And in God's order of leadership, that's the man. He's the one that God has called to govern the family unit. Wives, you are to be under submission to that authority. So at the end of what we like to call in my household, not an argument, we're having a discussion. Sometimes heated, but it's still a discussion. And you guys may still be a little on opposite sides. Godly wives, true submission says, I respect you and I trust you as the leader of our home, and I'll do whatever you think is best. That's how we handle in my house. I express myself. He's heard what I have to say. Ultimately, if it has to come down to one decision being made, I respect you, I trust you, I'll follow whatever you decide at the end of the day. That's submission. But what does that look like, and how do I consistently show that to my husband? There's many, many ways that you can show it, but today I'm going to talk about one specific way, and that's respect. This word is so important to your husband. It's imperative, women, that you understand how much respect matters to him. Pastor made it very clear the past 2 weeks that men, you must be the type of husband that your wife wants to respect. Give her something to admire and to look up to. But ladies, hear me. If he's not even doing his part of loving you the way you want to be loved right now, you still have your responsibility to respect him. Living for God and obeying the Bible does not only apply if others play their part. Well, if he loves me, I'll respect him. That's not how the Bible works. you still have to do your part of being submissive and showing respect. You are to respect him, even if he doesn't show you the love you deserve. One day, God's going to say, well done, thy good and faithful. So every day, be faithful and committed to saying, no matter what happens, no matter if I want to, it's a willing, not a feeling, I'm going to make sure that I am respecting my husband. I'm going to give you some practical ways, and here's a little side note. If you didn't know, every man is a little different, right? We're not all the same. We're not all cookie cutters. Some of these may apply and some may not. My point of saying that is you're going to have to find out what makes your husband feel the most respected. Some of these, obviously, are going to come from my own personal experience. It may not apply to your husband the same way. So point to yourself as ladies and say, I must put in the work. I must find out how to make my husband feel the most respected. And if you already know, good for you. You're ahead of the game. But are you doing it? That's your homework. If you know what makes him feel respected, are you doing it? And if you don't know, take some time, ask him some pointed questions, and find out, how can I show you respect? Do it today, but after my class, so that we don't have too many side conversations going on. You can have that conversation over lunch. So here are 8 tips, very quickly, on how to show your husband respect. The first and the most basic is find out his primary love language. If you've not read the 5 books, the 5 love languages, go buy it, read it, find out his primary love language. Respect is the man's version of love, so that they feel the most respected when you love them in the way that matters to them. So if he likes acts of service, do things for him without him asking. This may include and refer to normal chores, but sometimes it's outside of our daily life. We get so caught up on he doesn't do the dishes and he doesn't do the laundry. That's just daily life that both of you are responsible to participate in. Maybe there's something else you could clean his car or shine his golf clubs or whatever. Maybe he likes his shoes shine. Something that an act of service that would matter to him other than just daily responsibilities. If your husband has a quality time, spend time with him. My husband loves to take drives. He's an absolute quality time person, and he just loves to drive around the city. Do I always want to drive around the city for an hour or two? No. I'd rather sit on the couch, comfortable. But do I do it because he wants to and he wants to spend time with me and I know that it matters to him and I'm loving him and respecting the way that matters to him? Absolutely. If I'm spending time with you and that's what you want to do, absolutely. Let's go for a drive. And we still have relationship building and we get to people watch, and that's always fun, especially if you go to the beach. If your husband is a word of affirmation person, take every advantage to tell him how you respect him and what you respect about him. If he's a gifts person, buy him random gifts. It doesn't have to be a special occasion. This is the kind of things that you just need to do on a regular basis so that they never have to question. Don't let go 3 or 4 or 5 months without them hearing you say something that validates respect. Physical touch, that one you can figure out on your own. You can communicate about that definitely after my class. Number 2, ego. The male ego is a real thing. Ego is self-esteem and self-importance. That is how God created men, and it is absolutely okay for them to have an ego. Your responsibility, this is all about women, your responsibility as a godly wife is to help maintain that. So it is not your place to tell your husband, grow up, get over it, you're acting like a child. That's not being a godly wife. That's not being submissive to what matters to him and is important to him. Sometimes they need to be knocked down. My husband, sometimes I'm like, man, you're not even going to fit through the door. Your head is like, boop, especially after all y'all compliment him on his preaching. But majority of the time, men need to be elevated. They need to know that my wife, my biggest fan, my number one sidekick, is impressed by me. That she loves me, she respects me, she values me. And how do you do that? By puffing up their ego. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing. Here's an example. My husband was at Men Conference a couple weeks ago. I saw him on the live stream. I texted him, "You look so handsome on the live stream, baby." 7 heart emoji, eye face emojis. Next text, "Glad you're all mine." 3 hearts. How simple was that? You're going to have to ask him if it mattered to him or not. I'm sure it did. But I just wanted him to be reminded, I'm not with you right now, but I'm your number one fan. And I love you and I respect you. And I'm going to make you feel good about who you are. Okay? It's not a feeling, it's a willing. It's okay to boost his ego. Number 3, how can I let my husband know that I respect him? By letting him be vulnerable with you. Your husband has emotions too. Society tries to tell men to be tough and gruff. Don't show emotions. Don't break down. Don't be sensitive. Don't be vulnerable. But they're human beings, and they have those feelings. He will be sad at times. He'll be overwhelmed. He's going to be discouraged. And as a godly wife, you should be the safe place for him to share those emotions. You should want to be a part of what he is feeling. And you, of all people in the entire world, are the one that he wants you to validate him the most during those times. Your role is to participate in that. Don't mock him or make fun of him. Don't belittle him. I'm going to get to that. Validate him. Lift him up. Show him that you respect him even in his feelings of weakness in that moment where he's vulnerable to you. If not, he'll have a tendency to want to shut that off from you, which means you're not going to feel the connection love that you want because he's not going to want to love on you when he can't even express himself when he's vulnerable. Show him that you respect his feelings, that he can be trusted with them, and that you are here to support him. Number 4, don't mock your husband. Most men hate to be mocked. It makes them feel and look stupid. And I can't speak for your husband, but for mine, this is a huge hot button for him. A huge one. Mocking is scorning or making fun of. It's ridiculing. It's poking fun at. You can have fun, you can tease, but know your husband's boundaries and when you've gone too far. I push the button sometimes, I'm not going to lie. When I'm aggravated and we're in a heated discussion, I'll push it just to push it. I know I'm going to have to apologize later, but I'll push it. Now, that's not being submitted, and that's not being a godly wife, but in that moment, sometimes I don't really care. Other times, I don't even know I'm doing it. I feel like we're having fun, and I've said something, and I can instantly tell by his reaction, whoop, that was not teasing. He felt like I mocked him. And in that moment, I make it a point. I'm sorry. I was not trying to mock you. I was just teasing. I didn't realize I went too far. Why? Because I'm still validating, but I'm not making fun of. I'm trying to be respectful of this man and his feelings. So watch what you say. Society has made it a joke that all men are stupid. If you go watch sitcoms today, wives, they act like their husbands or fathers have like pea-sized brains and they're useless and can't do anything. If you don't believe me, go watch a sitcom. They make fun of them. He can do nothing right. He can do nothing right with the children or in the home. And as a godly wife, I'm pleading with you. Do not allow this same spirit or approach to come into your home in the way you treat your husband. It's not biblical. These actions are opposite of respect and humility. Number 5, don't belittle your husband around your friends or family. Ladies, just stick with me, okay? I'm trying to give you tools to be a godly wife today. I'm trying to help you to understand that we play a very specific role. And when it comes to respect of our husband, under submission to him, if we don't respect him and enact these things, we're not going to be able to fully enact submission. So just hang with me. You are his wife, his helpmeet, and his biggest friend, his biggest fan, hopefully friend too. But yet, it has been in situations that when I've been in a group of women, it sounds like they're married to the biggest bunch of wimpy, needy babies versus men that I have ever seen. Don't go to lunch with family members. Don't go to lunch with a group of girlfriends and have your husband as the main entree. That's disrespectful. It's rude. It's not what a godly woman does. Don't talk about all his negative traits and belittle him and tear him down to make him look insignificant and stupid. Don't belittle him in that way. Don't make him out to be a little person. If you show respect to his face, show it behind his back. Defend him. When he's not with you, be the one that is showing others how to respect your husband. Your words matter. Your words play a really important part on how others will view your husband. You may not think that's true, but you can't take back what you've said about him. Once it's in their mind, you're going to move on from it. You may be having the worst day. You may have argued. You got in the car, you went to lunch, and you're mad at him. I tell my husband, some days, I love you, but today I don't really like you. We're just not getting along. I deeply love you, but today is just not a day we're getting along. It's going to happen. It happens to all of us. It'll happen. It's okay. But if it happens to be the day that you're going to lunch with people, or you're going to be around friends or family or coworkers, and it's just right here on your head, and then all of a sudden that's all you talk about and belittle him, they can't forget that. You're going to go home and make up with him. You're going to say you're sorry, and you're going to move on, and your relationship's going to be awesome. But every time they see him or they hear something else, it just compounds, and they don't have respect. Please don't do that. Godly women, don't be a part of the reason people find it hard to respect your husband. Don't set him up for failures in others' minds. Be his biggest fan. Set him up for success. Number 6. Hello? No, I'm just kidding. Never contradict your husband in front of your children. It matters that you show respect to your husband with your words and your actions. It matters that others hear you say respectful things about him, but it really matters, godly moms, that your children see and hear you showing respect to your husband. Brother Gwyndu will talk further about this next week when he talks about the children or the couple weeks from now. But today I want to tell you, you must respect your husband in front of your children. If you want to follow your example, then you must be an example for them to follow. And if your husband makes a decision, if he's disciplining, I've been here, and I don't like how he's disciplining. If he's correcting or setting some things straight in the home, I've been here. Don't contradict him or belittle him when your kids can hear it or see it. Even if you don't agree with his decision, you need to show your support in front of your kids. Go to a private place. Express your frustrations on the situation and how it should be handled differently privately. Don't do it in front of your children. When you contradict your husband, the leader of your home, the God-ordained leader of your home, the one that is told to do this, correcting, disciplining, setting straight, in front of your kids, you're showing them that it's okay for them to be disrespectful as well. And it's not. So teach them by example. Be submissive, be humble. Lead by example. So the last few were really heavy, I know, but here's a little bit more fun stuff. Number 7, be creative in how you tell and show him respect. Your husband's primary love language may not be words of affirmation, but he still needs to hear it. When was the last time you texted him and expressed how much you respected him? Very simple text. Here's an example. I really admire how you get up every day and go to work to provide a safe and secure life for us. That's showing respect. That's being a godly woman. It's encompassing all the other points that I previously talked about. I have so much respect in the way that you lead our home. Thank you for everything you do for me. It doesn't take a lot of thought. You can make it very personal, but it also matters. Do you say thank you when he does things? Like I said earlier, each individual one of us have roles, and in a home, there's a lot of things that have to be done. Dishes, laundry, constantly. It never ends. Those can be divvied out among you. But if he does it, do you say thank you? If he does something extra and goes beyond, you just, oh, well, you're the husband. You should have cleaned the garage. You should have cut the grass. Or would it be too difficult to be a godly wife, supports her husband, lifts him up and says, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you just worked all day, but you came home and cut the grass. I really appreciate it. It looks amazing. Use every opportunity you can to affirm your husband by expressing gratitude for the things he does for you and your family. It matters. And I'm pretty much at my last point, so you can stand. My last point is have fun. Please don't make your marriage, quote unquote, work. If you're newly married, it does take a little time to get acclimated and to get in the flow of things. I understand that. To learn each other, I get that. But the only work you should be doing is research on new and creative ideas on how to grow and have fun in your marriage. Marriage should not be a task or a duty. It should be fun. This is your life partner. This is who you're experiencing everything with. This is who brings you the most joy. This is the person that fulfills you, and this is the one you've chosen to do life with. So as a wife, do some research. Come up with fun things. The other day, Alana was out of town. It was during the summer, so I guess it was a couple months ago, but we went to dinner. Everything was the other day. We went to dinner, and we were sitting at dinner, and he's like, so after dinner, I want to do something. And I was like, okay. He's like, I want to go on a scavenger hunt. And he had printed off this list of 25 things. He's like, I just want to drive around the city, and when we see it, we'll mark it off the list, and we'll see how long it takes us and if we can find everything. And it was so much fun. So the hardest part was we had to find a bell. And I'm like, oh, I think there's one over here. And it wasn't. And then he found one like hidden in this old church. He's like, oh, I know where there's one. He'd been there years ago, old church, way down off Independence somewhere. And there it was, up in the thing. And he got out and he's ringing it. It's like 9:30 at night. I'm like, what are you doing? Ringing the bell. The only one we couldn't find was the phone booth. Those are really hard to find nowadays. So I'm like, where'd you get this list from? So we could not find the phone booth. But like a month and a half later, we were in Disney, and I happened to be walking through a restaurant, and there was a phone booth. And I took a picture of it, and I texted it to him, and I was like, I found one. Have fun. Make it fun. Don't be boring and just stay home all the time. That was cheap entertainment. It was a list. We got offline and a little bit of gas. I will leave you with one final saying from a sign that I actually have above my bed. And it says, I swear I couldn't love you any more than I do right now, and yet tomorrow I know I will. It's a constant reminder that there's new things to learn, there's new ways to show love, there's new ways to respect, there's new ways to invest in this person that God has given you to be your soulmate, to be that person that you live life with. Marriage is a God-ordained thing. It's something that he loves. The family was the first church. So take it seriously, value it, invest the time that you have to invest. Women, I love you. I appreciate you. I value you. Hopefully, I was able to give you a few tools today to help you understand. I know it sounded like I was promoting the men, but I am. Because if I'm under submission and I'm humble to my husband, I want to make him feel like he is the God of our home, that he is my everything. And the best way I can do that is with some of these functions and tools of validating him and respecting him and showing others how to respect him. If you're with your spouse today, I just want us to pray quickly before we dismiss. If you don't have a spouse again, that's okay. If your spouse isn't here, pray for yourself. God, work these things in me. Teach these things. If you're with your spouse, husbands, I want you to pray over them, that they would learn and that they would fall in love with the concept and the idea of submission and respect. Lord, I thank you so much today that we've had an opportunity to explore your word deeper than we have before. Lord, I'm praying that each person in this room, married couples, wives, godly wives, those that are pursuing to be wives in the future may be, I'm asking that we would not take this concept casually, that we will not just go through the motions of hearing it, that how it's important, but Lord, that we would value it to our core, that we would understand that as we're submitting to our husband, it's not just to him, but it's to your divine authority. That when you said that our husbands were the coverings over our home, that it was for a very specific reason. And as long as we stay under that covering with submission and respect and love, we're protected and we're provided for, and we are staying in line with your word. I'm praying that your blessings would flow, Lord, that your favor would flow in this room with every woman as they learn and as they apply and as they grow in the art of submission and love. Lord, I pray that your blessings would unite the marriages in this room, that they would unite husbands and wives together, and as a church that we would grow with strong marriages and strong relationships. Lord, we honor you today, and we thank you for your word, and that as we obey your word, that we can receive the promises from your word and the benefits that residual that would come down from the blessings from the Father above to the husband, to the wife, and to our children. Lord, bless our homes, bless our marriages, bless our family units in this church. We give you praise, we give you honor and glory. Bless our upcoming service at the 11:30 time, Lord. You see and know what we need from you today individually and collectively, and we're asking that you would speak today, speak through your word, that we may receive it and go out encouraged. In Jesus' name, amen.